Okay, so I wasn't really planning to make a video on this, but figured I would at least show what I'm working on here. I'm replacing the power steering hose that goes from the pump here all the way up to the bottom of the reservoir. And I was lucky enough to find a new filter from Ivo Christoph's website. It's hard to find these. I paid like, I think 80 or 90 bucks to have it shipped, but it's kind of a stone, hard filter. I've seen some people take some other filter that was similar, same diameter but thicker, and they cut it in half. I didn't want to go that route. I decided to splurge and get the right one. Where I'm having trouble with this, so I've drained the fluid out. This hose was terrible. It was like zip tied on. Whoever owned it last didn't even have a proper a hose clamp. So anyway, pulled off the end down there and let that drain into the pan. And then up here, took off the top, which is just this right here, this portion strainer. But where I'm stuck is, so there's a spring down in there, and I'm sorry I don't have a light handy here. There's a spring that is on this shaft. See if I get in here. There we go. It slides up freely once you get this clip here up high enough. So you pretty much have to kind of push this down, take some pressure off, and then reverse thread this upward, kind of pulling as you're spinning it. It's what it feels like. Even though I don't see, yeah, there are some threads down there. You can see them right above the spring. So once you get it past that, it'll slide up. Well, now there's some ridges that are right here on the shaft that I am having a real time getting it past. So I'm going to use some trim tools, just car trim tools here for taking off, popping off panels on your doors and whatnot. I'm going to try to put that in there and work it slowly upward. And then once we get that out of there, then that lower part, that cover, can come up, and the filter should be sitting underneath that. So we'll see how this goes. Okay, success. See those little ridges down there that I was trying to, get past right there. That is the pain point to get past. How I did it was to use this trim tool, which this is worth buying if you, just for this job. It's probably like a $10 set of cheap trim tools. But anyway, I was able to get it under here like, sorry, camera challenges. Get it under here like this. So this is kind of what it looks like. And just do this really hard. I'm talking like I had one hand holding the shaft here and the other hand pulling and twisting on this back and forth, and I finally got it past there with a lot of force. Don't want to damage that clip because online looks like it's 4 to 6 weeks from FCP Euro. I don't want to wait a month and a half to drive the car if I were to damage that. Anyway, so now I'm just, okay, this point forward, you just kind of spin it and pull it. And you can see it gets up toward the threads here. Here we go. Voila. That is the, oops, where is it? That is the nightmare of a piece to get off. Really, really stupid design, BMW. I don't know how this was their best idea, but anyway, for this thing. So anyway, now at this point, this spring comes up, which you can also, I think, buy those online if you need to. And then inside here is this cap down inside, which I've got to, I can't do this with one hand, I don't think, with the camera down. Anyway, it's a cover, that silver cover comes off. See the bits of junk in there from me trying to get that clamp off of there. I have to clean that up. And underneath there is where the filter is. So I decided to see if a magnet would pull that up, and it does. We've got a magnet. There we go. Put this off to the side here. And then inside here is what we're looking at next. Looks like the filter, oops, sorry, the filter is just sitting there. So let me see if I can pull that out with some pliers here. These long needle nose pliers are my best tools ever, love it. So there it is. Yeah, so anyway, I'm gonna put the camera down so I can actually move this to a good spot. Alright, so here's what it looks like down the side there. You can see this shaft right here is just kind of mounted to that little plate down there at the bottom. So there we go. So the filter kind of sits between the, I'm sorry, this is really terrible camera work. The filter sits between those little, see the little ledge right here, and there's one on the other side over there. It just sits around that kind of keeps it in place. So now it's just the reverse of putting all that back together, which, oh joy, I get to mess with that ring again. The plate back on here, that wiped off. Alright, so this goes back on like that. And when it goes, make sure it's settled down on top of the filter and not hung up on the sides, which I think that feels pretty solid. All right, and so then we do the reverse, put the spring back on, oops. And my favorite little friend, this clip. So I'm gonna put the camera down so that I can get this back on. Okay, much easier going the other way. It literally went past those ridges in like 5 seconds or less. So let's go down to the bottom, and then we have to thread it back on. So can't really film that because my whole hand has to be in there. But essentially thread it back to where that spring has tension holding the cover on the filter. So I got the new hose on right down there. Hooks up here nicely, and we then filled the reservoir with this Dexron VI, which does replace the Dexron 2 and 3 that you might have heard about. I've heard this is what to use these days. So filling that up, and now I've got to make sure I've got enough in there. So next step. All right, so I walked through the fill-up procedure, and there's another video that documents that really well that I will link to. But basically, I had put too much fluid in to begin with, so we're supposed to fill it up to the bottom of the screen. I had gone way above that. Anyway, then you turn the key to the on position, don't start the car, where it unlocks the steering wheel, turn your wheels left to right, full lock each way, and see if the level drops anymore, so, add some. Then you crank the engine over, like without trying to start the motor, just kind of get it to turn over a few times. You may have to disconnect your fuel pump relay and see if any more air comes out. Again, add then more fluid. And then the last step was to start the engine and do the steering wheel again, left to right, both ways, all the way. Add fluid as needed. Then the last step, which was to pump the brakes a bunch of times and make sure that it's the level's good after that. I think at the very end of it all, with the engine warm, the fluid should be, according to the Bentley manual, no more than 10 millimeters, which is about a ½ inch from the top. Well, my engine was cold, so I'm letting it warm up right now because fluid expands, and so I want to see how full it is when the fluid is warm. And so I'm going by, here we go, section 2, page 21 here in the power steering section. So this is with a 535 here. This is what it's saying to do. So if you want to check that out, you can. But, anyway, pretty good. No leaks, which I'm happy about. And that's about it. We'll put the top on, continue checking that fluid in a little bit, but that should be about it. Hopefully that was helpful. Thank you.